All right, welcome back to the Coolest Show. This has been a long time in the making. This is somebody I've known for a long time. I've had videos from me when I had blonde hair, with my mom on the side. He was interviewing us to videos of me being interviewed by him again when I had a basketball camp. Somebody I looked up to, especially from a journalism standpoint, and I'm so thankful that he gets to be here and gets to hear, or we get to learn from him and hear what he has to say. This is Greg Funderburg. Greg, how are you doing today?
Man, I am doing well. I just want to say this. I remember the day your mom came in. I think it was back to school
It was,
event
yeah.
at church, and you just happened to be there. Your mom said, "Oh yeah, he came tagging along this morning." I said, "Come on, we can put him on the show." So back then, you were actually shorter than me, and I'm still 5'4", and now you shot up to like way higher than me. So at least you were blessed in that sense to have the height. I don't have that on my side. So.
I remember when you sent it to me, because you sent it to me again about a month ago.
Yeah.
When I,
Yep.
I cried laughing. It is one of the most hilarious things because I'm just up there and I'm nervous as all get out. I have this blonde hair, and obviously, like, you speak so prophetically, like you're very articulate, it's very smooth. My mom, articulate, smooth, and then me all we have pencils, and it's hilarious. I love that video
Yeah.
so much.
I would assume you had to be like seventh grade,
Around
sixth
that
grade,
time,
seventh
yeah.
grade, around that time.
Yes, sir, yes.
So the only question I had on my mind is I said, Dr. Randolph, I said, who let you get the blonde hair? Did you beg and plead? And she finally just
Oh,
said,
I
give in.
begged and pleaded. Absolutely, absolutely. I don't know what convinced her. I think she just got tired of me talking because I would
Mhm.
ask 24/7. Yeah, it was around that time where like Odell Beckham Jr. from the New York Giants, he took off. So
Yep.
everybody wanted blonde hair. So I was definitely a recipient of my time.
Yep. That's awesome. I wish I could do blonde hair, but there's so many loopholes I would have to go through with my station to see if they'll let me do
Mhm.
it. I'm
Oh,
just,
I'm the same way right now. I'm the exact same way.
yeah,
Plus, I don't think it's for me. I see those pictures.
yeah.
I'm glad I changed it.
I feel you.
But um, the reason I brought you on is for the purpose of talking about journalism. Journalism is such a huge impact to our lives. It helps curate how we think, especially in a lot of ways, agenda framing and agenda setting. It can help shape a culture in its
Mhm.
entirety. So it's important to know what we're putting out, even from a basic creator standpoint, not just from the journalism as a whole, but like simple posts that we make and the importance of how that can impact other people's lives, either directly or indirectly. And I think you're a perfect example of that. Obviously, this is what you do for a living.
Mhm.
And the words in which you say, they can convey a certain meaning. Like you could say hello, and that hello could have 50 different undertones
Yeah.
contingent on how you say things. So hearing from you, a veteran in this game, somebody who's done this for a long time and done it well for a long time, I think would be super important and super impactful.
It's so important that you say things the way that you intend for them to come off. When you think about, the world that we live in today with politics, and we have so many different things that are happening, social issues in America. And so the goal is you always want to make sure you're conveying a certain tone when you're talking about certain subjects. And what I mean by this, I talked to a lot of interns about this, is somebody told me years ago, we call them mood adjectives. So whenever I'm talking about something that's heartbreaking, sad, you want to make sure the tone of your voice is matching what you're talking about. Or if you're talking
Mm.
about something exciting, you want it to match. Or if it's something serious like politics and, elections and things like that. So you want to always convey the message of what you're trying, your voice convey the message of what you're trying to get across. But it's one of those things that I tell people, so especially young journalists, it takes years to get to a point where you get to a comfort level to get to that point, and you just take time and to develop your voice and get to that point in your life.
I'm glad that you noted the years portion because you've been in the game for multiple years. This is over 10 years of you working. So what was what was your starting point? What led you to go into journalism? What was the desire? What was the drive?
So I've been in journalism 19 years officially as a college graduate, but I actually started when I was in college at a local TV station in my hometown of Sylacauga, Alabama. So I'm gonna take you way back. So when you think about
Let's do
journalism,
it.
a lot of people always, a lot of people think that I always wanted to be a journalist, and that was not the case. So when I was a kid, I would go to my grandmother's houses, both houses, and I don't know what it was. I was fascinated with funerals and morticians and things like that. So I used to take little toys and put them in like a matchbox, like the little toys you would get at like some of the restaurants in your like kids meal,
Yeah.
and put them in like a little box and make all my cousins come out with when we go to my grandmother's house on the weekend. I'll say, hey, when we come this weekend, we'll get on a three-way, four-way call and say, hey, we have a funeral this weekend. Such and such toy died. And I will make them in like we were having a funeral. And so people
Mhm.
always think this is not true. This is not really what happened. My first co-anchor at the station where I worked in Chattanooga, she actually asked my grandmother when she visited in the summer of 2015. She said, is this really true? And my grandmother would say, yes. When we would look out the kitchen window, he would be out in the yard digging a hole. And I had like a little cemetery at my mom's house and also at my dad's mother's house. And so that was the first career that I thought that I was going to go into because, you know, I know it sounds morbid, but it's a business that's always going to stay in business if you want to be honest.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so the honest thing, what happened, the main anchor at the NBC affiliate in Birmingham, she's from my home county in Alabama, and she was working as a main anchor at the NBC affiliate at the time. And so she spoke at a summer program I was in. I was so fascinated by what she had to say. I got her contact number, called her several months later, went to the station. I got a chance to watch her do the 5 o'clock news live in person. And ever since then, I never looked back. And so when I left that day, I remember going back to my school. I was in the 11th grade at the time, and we were going around the room talking about what we wanted to be when we grew up. And I raised my hand and said, I want to be a news anchor reporter. And my teacher at the time said, TV news may not be the career for you. Maybe you should choose something else. And so, because my parents had always told me I can be whatever I want to be, I
Absolutely.
used her words as ammunition to
Yeah.
succeed. And so I never looked back.
I love that. So I'm really fascinated about this mortician. So as you were giving the toy funeral, would you give the eulogy and everything?
Oh, we did it all. We had somebody was the preacher, you know, somebody was the usher. Please, Dr. Randolph, I know your mom is going to be listening to this. Don't judge me, but somebody had to fall out. You know, we had roles that we
Yeah.
played, all the cousins. And so, and it's funny because my cousins, we still talk about this today. They say, you remember when you used to have those funerals back in the day when we were kids? But everybody played a role. I was the mortician. So I got to do you know, I used to get like some little flowers out the yard and we'll like, you know, ashes to ashes, dust to
Yeah.
dust, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, we do all that kind of stuff. So, it was something that I don't know how it came about. I don't know if I used to see dead people as a kid or something. I don't remember. But I was so fascinated with funerals. I remember I was so fascinated with it. My grandmother, I remember I was maybe fourth grade, third grade. She called my mom and said, hey, because they call me Little Greg because my dad is a senior. Does Little
Okay.
Greg want to go to the funeral with me today? Because I'm going to a funeral. And for some reason, I couldn't go that day because I had something going on. But it was just so crazy how the whole family just knew that I was going to have a funeral home. I was going to be that person and live happily ever after in my hometown. But God had a different plan.
As he often does.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, as you transition to go into a news anchor, um, let's go back to our first year. First year you're working. The first year was in Chattanooga. Am I correct?
My first job was in Columbus, Georgia, back
Okay.
in 2006. Then I was there for 3 years. Went to Greenville, South Carolina. Was there for about 3 years. Went to Chattanooga in 2013, and then I left there. And now I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina. So I've been 19 years. I still tell people I'm like 25 in my head.
Okay, so the first year, that's funny. The first year, what was the hardest adjustment getting into it?
You know, the first year, the hardest adjustment it really wasn't being away from home because I was in Columbus, Georgia, so I was like an hour and a half from home, and so I would go
Hmm.
home the time. I would say the hardest part for me was just all of the things that you have to do as a journalist. And a lot of people don't understand what that takes. It's, you know, you don't just do a story and it runs on Friday. Like it's a
Yeah,
daily thing. And
yeah.
so you come in at 9 o'clock in the morning, 9:30 in the morning, you're pitching stories and you go out with a photographer and you come back, put the story together, and you're on the news at 5 o'clock. And so it was a small market. So I made so many mistakes, when it comes to so many different things, but I
Mm,
was able to learn and grow from those mistakes. And so that's where when you think about journalism, you typically start in a small market so you can make all your mistakes. I remember one thing I do remember is I was on air and I said something wrong and I started laughing, which, you're not supposed to laugh in news. You're
yeah,
supposed to just keep going. But you
100%.
just learn from, all of those mistakes. And so I have a plethora of things I could go through where I made mistakes. But I remember because it was in an army town. And so Fort Benning is nearby. And I just remember I thought it's battalion when you pronounce it, but I looked at
Okay.
it in the teleprompter and I said Babylon. It's just, there are things that happen. You see something in the prompter and you mispronounce something, and you just learn. And even the people in the top markets, the network level, everybody is prone to making mistakes. But those are some of the earlier mistakes I learned early on in my career.
Oh, wow. I love that you spoke a little bit earlier when you were saying the layers to journalism, because I think a common misconception, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but a common misconception is that you just get a scoop and then you put it out. But there's a lot of context that coincides with the scoop, making sure it's reliable, making sure your source is correct. That's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more that I'm sure you can
Yeah.
dive into. But can you just speak on some of the misconceptions?
A lot of people think we just get a tip like this is the Real Housewives of Atlanta and we just go on TV with it. It doesn't work
Yeah.
that way. So you have to go through and verify information. You have to check with, if it's a crime story, you check with police to make sure, did this happen? When did it happen? Get the police report. Or in some cases, if you're covering a court case, you want to get the court documents to see what happened in court. So you just can't somebody just Joe Blow can't call the newsroom and say, hey, I got this story. This person did this to me, and I want to go on TV and talk about it. So you have to
Yeah.
do your homework on the back end, and you have to go and find police reports and things like that. But the flip side of it is when you talk to the person who is making the accusation, you also have to talk to the other person on the other side. And so,
Okay.
so many people forget that they don't even go get the other side of the story. So the goal as a good journalist is you get both sides of the story. You put the two pieces together with all of this meshed into a story, and then you put the information from the police department, like, hey, this incident happened on this day, this time, this is what we have here, and you get both sides of the story. And the goal is for the viewer to be able to decide what they think about the story. So you don't want to sway people one way or the other. You want to give people both sides equally in balance. So people who are watching your newscast, if that's on television or digital, that they can make their own assumption as to what happened.
Okay, I'm so glad you said that, because that starts to lean into what I wanted to get into, and that's the concept of agenda setting and agenda framing, where the certain news telecast or whoever it is that's putting out the media can curate a certain image that will shape a culture. And
You
how important do you think it is to have a unbiased opinion when telling journalism and telling news?
It's a lot of people, I will say this right here. A lot of people over in the past 10, 15 years, people get it confused based on regular traditional news
Hmm.
versus commentators. So if you look at some of these commentators on like some of the bigger networks like CNN, MSNBC, those people like Rachel Maddow, Joy Reid, who used to be on MSNBC,
Yeah.
or some of the people who are on Fox News, some of those commentators who are in these different positions, those commentators pretty much they give information, but they also tend to swing one way or the other when it
Hmm.
comes to Republican, Democrat, or independent. And so at the end of the day, I always tell people a good frame of mind is it's always good to watch a little bit about what Fox News is saying, watch a little bit of what MSNBC is saying, watch a little bit of what CNN is saying, and you come to your own conclusion on what you believe to be the fact and what is real. And also do your own homework to see what is real and what is fact. And the other part about it is when you think about traditional news, a regular newscast, most TV stations are typically the stations where they're going to be fair and balanced, give you both sides of the story. And so you allow the viewer to come to their own conclusion. And so I think in the world that we live in today, so many people have watched more of the commentators that they believe what happens on that side is what's happening on the news side. And so the goal in every story that I've ever done when it comes to politics or anything else, I always try to make sure we are fair and balanced, because if it's not a fair and balanced story, then you need to find another way to get the other side of the story so that you are giving both parties an opportunity to address. So let's like politics. If you're going to talk to one side, you got to talk to the other side. You just can't talk to one side and eliminate the other side. However, if the other side chooses not to speak or talk to you on camera or speak to your news organization, when you close out that segment, you have to say, we reached out to X, Y, and Z. They declined an interview with our network. So that's the thing that I tell people, especially young journalists today. A lot of people have missed the structure of making sure they get both sides of the story. But, the goal is always to make sure you get both sides of the story so people can come to their own conclusion.
I love that. And I think that highlights the importance of traditional journalists versus what people are calling new media. But like learning or getting a scoop or finding out a situation from a third-hand party instead of going to them directly and actually like figuring out what happened. Because it's easy to get something from social media and just take that for word and then create your own story based off of that. But you're on the front lines actually having the conversation.
I will say this, speaking of social media, so many people are not getting their news from credible news sources. So a lot of people getting their information from social media. Like during the election cycle last year, I would scroll TikTok and I'm just like, now this is a whole lie, because I just read this story the other day and this is not what this is about. And so I always tell people, do not just get your news from one source. Always verify, and verify, because people can take things and change it up. And then we have artificial intelligence in 2025. People are taking your face, your voice, and making it sound like you're saying something, but Darwin never said that. And so if you look at AI pictures and videos, you can tell what's AI. And the sad part about it is there's so many people in America who can't tell the difference if it's AI or not.
Absolutely. It's getting harder and harder. AI is getting smarter and smarter and more complex. But I love what you just noted about, and you said it a couple of times, and I think it's another important point to bring out, getting your facts based off of multiple different opinions, like going to multiple different outlets to hear what they have to say. And that even stretches into like all different avenues. Like you can think about maybe from like even a biblical standpoint. Like if one pastor says one thing, go gain the understanding for yourself. Like go actually read the Bible, because they're humans just like journalists are humans, just like teachers are humans, just like all these other professions are created and done by humans. So if you're not gaining that understanding for yourself, if you're not actually going out there to learn the information to make sure it's correct, you're liable to fall or be misled.
Yep, that's a good point. I mean, I've been in church my whole life, Sunday school, BTU, Crusaders, all that stuff. And so, sometimes I see some things that people post about the Bible and I'm like, I don't think you read that right. Just like, no, that's not what that said. That's not what that means. And so it's one of those things, like you said, I think in the world that we live in today, a lot of people have missed the art of reading and 100%. Finding information. And the thing about it is, it's not hard to find information in 2025. I remember, when we had cell phones and it was a Nokia phone back in the day, we didn't have access to the internet on a cell phone. And like you had to map quest before you left the TV station, how to get to where you were going, and then map quest from that location back to the TV station. You print it out. And now you have like all this information that is accessible to you at your fingertips that you can get. And even most people don't realize, you can go through and search stuff for yourself. If that's going to a court system and trying to find documents or whatever, you can always find, most of that stuff is public record and you can find it yourself.
Awesome. To somebody who would say that the idea of traditional journalism is starting to become unimportant because, as you said, of the accessibility of information? What would you like to say to counter that, or would you like to counter that?
Yeah, I think when it comes to journalism, things are changing. And, people are not watching the news traditionally like they watched when my grandparents were watching the late night news on television back when I was growing up in Alabama watching the Birmingham TV market. And I remember after the news went off at 10:35 in Alabama in the Birmingham market, I think In the Heat of the Night would come on. Those were the days I remember. You had to stay up and watch the news, or you watched the evening news to know what's going on. But I think in the world that we live in today, a lot of stations have switched over to a streaming channel because
Yeah,
people want news 24/7 all day long and have access to that information. And so many of those stations, including my station here in Raleigh, North Carolina, we have a streaming channel. And so, you can have access to all of this information within a moment's notice. So the thing about it is, if we're at a breaking news scene at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and we're going to have more on the story, back in the day, it was like, we'll have more on this coming up at 5 o'clock.
hmm,
Nowadays, you have your cell phones, you can go live on Facebook, you can go live on this, you can stream, and people can literally sit at their desk or pull out their phone and they can see exactly what is happening. Because at the end of the day, I tell people all the time, the one thing about being a good journalist is you have to be nosy.
yeah,
And the thing about being nosy, everybody is nosy because I have been in the communities. I have been in places where there's been like an incident that has happened in the neighborhood, and you got the ladies out there in the bonnets and the house coats and
uh-huh,
the robes and things like that. The guys out there in their house shoes, like, what's going on?
yeah,
So everybody's nosy because everybody wants to know what's going on.
for
But the thing
sure.
about it is, it's so accessible now. You can just get it any time of the day. And so that's the cool thing about how news is changing with the digital platforms, because you can get it at any moment's notice and you can always stream live. You can get behind the scenes. You don't have to go to a TV station to like see the behind the scenes nowadays, because most news anchors, they broadcast behind the scenes and tell people what's happening, or this is why we were laughing in at 6:25 this morning, or
Yeah,
5 o'clock this afternoon. This is what happened. And so that's the really cool thing about news and the digital aspect. And being in the news that we work in today, yes, you have ways you can make revenue on the television side, but so many stations are making a lot of money on the digital side as well, because it's a medium that's picking up rapidly.
awesome. Has that changed your viewpoint going forward? Because again, you spoke on your grandparents, you spoke on you 19 years ago when digital was it was small, nowhere near to the magnitude it is now. And obviously you're still in the game now. So has that changed your viewpoint on how you tell stories or anything, or just like your job in general, your viewpoint of how you view journalists?
I think the storytelling is still the same, but the really cool thing about the digital aspect, I can connect with viewers immediately. I remember when I started in news in 2006, you had to pull out a piece of paper, write a letter to the station and say, Greg Funderburg, I don't like your tie. Thank you, Sister Bertha, whatever.
Yeah.
And people would do that. But nowadays, because of social media, they don't have to do that. They can hop on their phone and they can communicate with TV people. And the really cool thing about the digital age is you don't have to just go to a concert to see a Cardi B or an Usher or some of these artists and rappers out here. You
Hmm.
legit go on their social media, their TikTok pages, and many times they go live from home.
Yeah.
Cardi B's been live at home, and I wasn't a Cardi B fan for a long time until like one of my cousins, she was watching something. I said she's funny, and so I thought she was a cool person. And the cool thing is, I think digital has allowed people to do a lot of different things, like yourself, like doing a podcast, and it's opened the door for churches to be able to take the ministry beyond just the
For
walls of
sure.
the church. And they can
Absolutely.
take it all out in the open, and you can go broadcast out to the entire world. So I think that is one of the pluses of digital media. But one of the things that is a negative, in my opinion, you have so many people giving information on the digital platforms, but you also got to be careful in watching, and vetting what people say, because just because somebody says it, on the digital platform that you watch all the time does not mean that person is telling the full truth about what has
Mm.
happened.
Awesome. How would you go about vetting through it? Because I feel like, especially from a Gen Z, a relatively young person, when you saw something on TV, you could take it a little bit more for his word. But now, because there's so many mouths in the landscape of the digital media, there you don't how you it's hard to decipher what's true and what's false. So how would you go about vetting that?
I typically check different mediums. Like, for instance, if somebody says, like a podcast or somebody get on and they say, this is what this candidate said today, or this is what this candidate said today. And
Mm,
typically in those hot button races, if it was something that was like facts, like I would check a reputable source like the Associated Press, NPR, some of the main networks, ABC, NBC, Fox, just to see what are they saying about this.
yeah.
And between two or three networks that you can see the story, you can decide if the person that you originally got the information from was a little fabricated, or
Okay.
if it was false, or what is the actual truth. And so I think a lot of people today, they're just taking what people say as fact and they're running with it. And so that is how so much misinformation is getting out there. And so the thing about, people may say, how do we regulate it? But everybody has access to go live. Anybody can go live. I mean, you can go live. I think Facebook back in the day, when it came out, when I was 2004, I was in college. It was only a college platform, but now everybody has access. And sometimes there are some people I see on Facebook, and I'm just like, you have. I'm gonna get myself in trouble, but you'll see certain things out there, and you're like, why is this person on Facebook Live? And
Yeah.
and I have a tendency to question some of the things that people will say and put out there. But at the end of the answer your question, just make sure you're vetting that information from a reputable source and check two or three sources, like I said, just to see what they are saying, to see if it's in fact true.
I love these. These are like not just parallels for journalism, but these are really parallels for life. Like, don't just believe what somebody says. Like, vet through them, collect data, make sure you're making the right decision. So I love that.
So many people are not doing that today.
100%. Whew, oh, I see it so
Yeah.
often. Um, there are some other questions I want to get into. I call these rapid fire questions. You
Okay.
can answer them as long as you want. You can go into as much detail as you want, or you could be as brief as you want. It's completely contingent on how you feel. Some of these will be semi-related. Some of these will have absolutely nothing to do, just so people can get a deeper understanding of you. Also, they can get a little laugh. The first one is, what are some songs that you're listening to right now?
Um, I have a lot of different songs to listen to. I can't say specific songs. I like Usher. I like a little Cardi B. I've gotten into Meg Thee Stallion a little bit. I like Kirk Franklin because I got to bring my gospel side.
Gotta have a
Um,
gospel side.
I tell people, like, when it comes to music, I like an array of music. I'm
Mm.
very open, but those are some of the top artists that are on my repeat right now. And then I like, oh my gosh, you can help me with this. Is it Maverick City?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Yeah, I was listening to them the other day, Kingdom, and
love
so
that
many of their
song.
songs. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
good song. So it's just it depends on the mood that I'm in.
yeah.
Sometimes when I'm getting ready to go work out because I'm trying to get my life together, I always tell people that. But I'm really trying to get my life together because my doctor she gave me an ultimatum. But when I'm listening to workout music, I'm listening to hardcore, something to get me pumped to be in the
Mm,
gym, working out, that type thing.
for sure. It's definitely like contingent on the surroundings, the occasion.
Correct.
I completely get it. How would you describe yourself using 3 words?
Uh, 3 words: honest, loyal, and helpful.
And how has that impacted your career?
Oh, it's amazing because you got to be honest if you're going to be a journalist, number
Yeah.
one. I'm loyal to people around me, people in my inner circle, people who are in my surroundings. I'm always going to be loyal to people around me, and just people in general. And the most important thing when it comes to being helpful, my dad has always been a giver, and I've watched my dad over the years give and do so many amazing things for so many other people. And so I have taken that into my professional career. So I'm always helping other people. So when I think about my time in Chattanooga, I was able to connect with so many people from churches to civic organizations to help them use that platform to help them get their message out there, whatever it is that they were trying to put out there. And so that has served me well in my career. And I'm just so blessed that I have a career that not only can I help people, and I tell people that I'm not called to be in the pulpit or anything like that, but I tell people it's like a ministry that I get
100%.
to do this every day.
Undoubtedly.
And it's a ministry to be able to tell stories that can affect people and hopefully help them to take something positive away, help them to maybe change their life or even, give or help someone else. And so that's the really cool thing about it.
I could not agree more. Like my favorite thing, because I added when I was in college, journalism became my minor because I fell in love with the concept of like telling an audience something and allowing that to shape the way that they think or help them in some form or fashion or even just give them the ability to learn from something that they might not be educated on. So I love hearing you say that because I have the exact same sentiment.
Yeah.
What is Greg's favorite thing to do when the cameras are off? He's done reporting. They tell him, Greg, you have an off day. You've been phenomenal. What is he doing?
I'm typically watching some Netflix, catching up on some shows, catching up with friends. I like to laugh. A lot of people don't know this about me. So when I was in Chattanooga, people who would come to the station, they would, come in and they'll, because they always expect me to be buttoned up and dignified. And so in the commercial breaks, I can say some of the craziest things. But I have a big sense of humor, big personality, and people would just be like, "I never saw this side of you. I didn't. I always thought, Greg was dignified." I'm like, and my friends, they laugh. They're like, "He is not dignified." I said, "Listen, I always joke with one of my friends. I'm not gonna call her out. I said because I'm close to her mom. Her mom is just turned 94,
Okay,
and I said, Miss
congratulations.
Sanders, I said like, when I pray, my prayers." They get to like line 2, and I know your prayers get to line 1. So I know that when the Lord called me to the pearly gates, I'm just gonna grab your robe and I'm gonna just slide on in.
I love that. Like, I think some of like the biggest misconceptions is loving God is the absence of fun when it's
Yeah,
not at all. Like, I have a great time. I love Jesus, but I'm going to have fun. I'm going to laugh because
yeah,
he gave me this life, so I'm going to enjoy it and
yeah.
have a great time and smile while doing it. So I love hearing you say that.
I totally agree.
Um, you said some Netflix movies. You said you like being on Netflix. So what's the current show that you're watching right now?
I've been watching, I think it's called She the People. It's a show on Netflix where, and I forgot the lady's name. I see her
I know
face.
who you're talking about because she was in the Steve Harvey show.
Yes.
Yes,
She
yes.
was she like Alizé or something?
Yep, Alize
Yep.
Jenkins. Yep,
Yeah. So
yeah.
she is the governor, a lieutenant governor of Mississippi, and I like politics shows. So I was a big fan of Scandal back in the day.
Yep.
So like I love politics, drama with politics. It's fascinating for me, and I've been watching her show. So I watched the second season, and it's been good to watch to see her in that role and to see her in a leading role for a
Mm,
show. And so anything with politics, presidential history, I'm all down for it. So I love that stuff.
awesome. What or who would your dream interview be with? They said, Greg, you have X amount of money. Go get whoever you want. Who would the dream interview be with?
Dream interview, of course, would be none other than the amazing Oprah Winfrey.
Oh,
If
100%.
I
Okay.
can sit
That's a good
down
one.
with
I like that.
if I can sit down with Lady O, you can tell me nothing. I would just be like over the moon. But just to see how she literally was working in local television news, and then she got an opportunity to go to Chicago. The show went national in 1986, and then how she worked with her lawyers to take ownership of her show, and how these lawyers who were negotiating the contract, they said, oh, they didn't think that she was going to do well. And not only did she do well, she was on the air for 25 years with the Oprah Winfrey Show, and she is still doing well. And so
Yeah,
to see
created
how
a
she
whole
has
empire.
built Exactly. She's built this whole empire from the show to a magazine, which is now a digital magazine, and all the things that she's been able to do in her career. It's just fascinating to know this girl who was born out of wedlock and dad lived in Nashville, mom was in Mississippi, grew up in Mississippi, grandmother passed away, and she moved with her mom and everything she's endured and gone through in life, and she's been able to be successful. Like it just shows you that anything is possible because
100%.
God is I'm a big person of faith, and I know that God is he'll make things possible.
Yeah.
Things that you didn't think were possible could happen. And so it's just I think she has a deeper story to tell that she probably hadn't told
Yeah.
in her life. So
I love that. I love that. Okay, so this kind of falls in line with that. I'm assuming that she'll be one of them. But if you could have four people invited to dinner, dead or alive, who would those four people be? Not including yourself.
four people. I mean, I got to have Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
100%.
He will be one. I would invite Michelle Obama because I think she's cool
Yeah.
and she laid back, and I think we'll have a good time. Um, Jackie Kennedy,
Okay.
uh, and the fourth person, dead or alive, who would I invite? So, I'm trying to think. I can't think of anybody. So, Dr. King,
It's always
Michelle,
hard. The last one's always the hardest because you realize you only got one option left. Like there's so many
yeah,
people that you could pick up. It's like, dang, it's only one spot though.
one spot. Uh, I'm trying to think. You know what? That is a good question. Let me think. Who would I invite?
There's always the home pick. There's the family member. There's,
Oh
you
no,
get.
I see them enough. I'm gonna get in trouble for that one. Um, uh, I would say, you know what? I would say Barbara Bush. And I'll
Okay,
tell you why I say each one.
please tell
Dr.
me.
King,
Yeah,
because of the legacy that he has left behind and the work that he did at such a young age. He died at
yeah.
39 years old. And so that's just one thing in itself.
Hmm.
Jackie Kennedy, this is a woman who I've always admired her in history because here's a woman who married this politician. She becomes first lady in her 30s, and then she goes through a tragedy and the cameras are rolling, like literally her husband's part of his body was like landed in her lap, and
Yeah,
she's having to go through, and she got this pink Chanel suit on, and they try to get her to change clothes, and she says, no, I want them to see what they have done to my husband, and just to see what she's endured during her time. Michelle Obama is just, I mean, just amazing. Michelle Obama
yeah,
is my dream brunch date because politics aside, she's just the coolest person, laid
yeah.
back, and I love her podcast, IMO with her brother, because you're able to see a different side of her. And
Hundred
the
percent.
last person, did I say Barbara Bush?
You did,
One thing I like about Barbara Bush, and because I like politics and stuff, so that's why I said all these political figures. And
of
I know
course.
Dr. Heaton's not a political person, but Barbara Bush, when I think about her watching interviews, she was no nonsense. Democrat, Republican, it didn't matter to her. But one thing I love about her is that she was always herself and she was always honest. She'll say what she meant. I remember when her son Jeb was running for president, and she said, we've had enough Bushes in the White House. It's time for somebody else to get a chance. And I just love she's got that grandmother candor
Yeah,
that I think about my grandparents. They were always very open and honest, straight to the point. And, she just seemed like a really cool person that I would have loved to get to know and get to meet if I was able to meet her if she was still alive.
I love those. Those are good ones. Those are definitely curated to you. So like every time I ask that question, you can always see like it always gives like a glimpse to the person as a whole because who you would
Mhm.
invite kind of like has a reflection on who you are. So I love that. That's amazing. What is one thing that you would tell yourself 5 years ago?
That's a good question. What I would tell myself 5 years ago, stop worrying. God is in control.
Absolutely.
and everything is going to work out the way it's supposed to. And what I mean by that is, when I don't know if I ever talked about, I don't think I've talked about this publicly, but when I was leaving my previous station in Chattanooga, I took a leap of faith and I walked away from a job that I absolutely loved. And I remember going through that whole time thinking, like, what should I do? And I was talking to my godmother about it, and she said, just take a leap of faith and pray about it. And so for me, growing up in my household and growing up in, I'm sure for you as well with your mom, you don't quit a job until you got another job. And so
100%. 100%.
So going back to Silicaga was not an option, but so Candy Johnson, who was the president and CEO of the Urban League at the time, I was talking to her and I said, hey, I'm thinking about leaving the station. I haven't decided where I'm going to go, or, I'm still looking for jobs and putting things out there. And I remember she said, if you want to come work with the Urban League, I have a position for you. You can come to the Urban League and you can figure out what you want to do next. And so I remember in that season when I made the bold decision in August of 2022 to tell the station that I was leaving in 3 months. It was scary and I was so nervous about it. And my godmother said, listen, God is in control. Yeah. And when I tell you that every single thing that I felt like I was losing in that moment and walking away from a job that I love. And I walked away from a job because, you get to a point in life when you work for an organization and you feel like you are not paid your worth, or you don't feel like you are getting all that you want to get out of that situation. And you have to make a bold decision. You have to walk away. And so I took a year and worked at the Urban League full time. It was an amazing opportunity. But I say all that to say, in all of that time when I thought that I was going to be missing out, like right after I left the station, my godmother's health started to decline. She passed away a month after I left the station. And Darwin, I got to be fully present. Like, God removed me from the situation. I got to be fully present. I got some amazing rest during that time. That was 3-4 months before I started at the Urban League. And then I got to learn a new skill set. And then my agent called and said, hey, you ready to go back to work? I had plenty of opportunities to go to other stations from the time I told the station I was leaving to the time that I went to the Urban League. But I just wanted to take a break, and it was scary. And I had friends like, have you lost your mind? Like, what's going on? And if I had to go back and do it all over again, I would do it again. Because when I tell you God has showed up and showed out, and he has blessed me in so many ways, especially in this new chapter of my life, I am just so grateful. And so I think about, to your question 5 years ago, what would you tell yourself? It's going to be okay. God is in control. And I truly believe, I didn't believe this then, but I believe it now. I believe that God has already walked the path for us, and he knows the journey that he's going to take you on. And so sometimes you have to make those bold steps and you have to take a leap of faith. And so I think, in the midst of that, I learned that, and I'll have more of this story I can share over the next, couple years, because, it's still evolving. But I can say that God has been truly tremendous in this season. And what I thought I was losing, God restored everything. But he gave me a chance to pause and take a break and just be present with myself and spend time with my family, my friends, and allowed me to come back to the career that I love so much. And so I just say to anybody out there listening or whatever, don't ever feel like you are alone and feel like God is not listening. Because there are some times I was like, God, are you listening? Do you hear? Like, my contract is up in 2 months. I need a job. Yeah. And so he had everything mapped out. And I didn't miss a meal. I did not miss a payment for rent, didn't miss this and that. It's just crazy how that all worked out, because my mom is the one that's the worrier. She's like, oh my Lord, you don't quit your job. And she called me one day, she was all upset. And I told my godmother about it. She says, tell Sister Marilyn she can't be on the Prayer Warriors team because she out here spazzing out and ain't even left the station yet. And so, but I remember when I told my dad that I was gonna do this, and he said, I'll never forget, he said, if you take one step, God will take the rest.
Yeah.
And when I think about that moment, it was one of the best. It was one of the best things my dad has ever told me in my life, is that you take the first step and God will do the rest. And he simply has done the rest. And he has paved out so many different things. And so I've had so many opportunities. Who would have ever thought, like I told a friend, I'm in North Carolina and I love politics. Who would have ever thought that I would be in North Carolina, one of the biggest elections of our country, anchoring the news when President Trump at the time decided to drop out on a Sunday. I'm on the anchor desk when all of this is. I was at brunch actually. Then I left brunch with some friends to get to the station. But just all the things that have happened in the past year, and then because North Carolina was a swing state, we had the president coming in, the running mate JD Vance, his now vice president was. I covered him. I covered Vice President Kamala Harris. I covered President Joe Biden coming through here. I covered former First Lady Joe Biden when she. It's like. I was like within feet away from these people that I've always wanted to cover politics. And it's just crazy how God just works and just put me in the place where he needed me, in the place that I knew that I needed to be. And it's been great for me.
I love that so much. And honestly, we have more questions, but I think this is the perfect place to wrap, because at the end of every episode, I give somebody a verse and I try to have it relate to what they're going through or what I feel like God has put on my heart. And I had one verse on there, but I'm changing it on the fly. And this verse is James 1:12. And it says, blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life given to all those who love God. And the summary of that is just remaining like steadfast and going through, because as you do remain steadfast and you just like trust in the Lord, he gonna put you where he needs you to be. And that clearly shows through your life. And I love that so much. And I'm really am like glad for you. I get to see it first and foremost, like I got a personal connection with you. So I'm glad, but I'm glad all these other people get to hear what it looks like for somebody to trust in God and to take that leap of faith. Because I know you were scared. A leap of faith is never easy, but you took it and it's showing the fruit of it. So that's amazing, Greg.
I will say this. I like how the Lord, I was going to say, let him use you, and you change up the scripture. But it's crazy how you're back in Chattanooga. I'm in Raleigh, because you were at Campbell, right?
I was, yeah, which is right outside of Raleigh.
Yep. So you're right.
Yeah,
right outside of Raleigh. So it's just, I'm just so, I didn't realize Campbell was so close until I was going on a story a couple of weeks ago. And I said, I didn't know it was this close. And I said, I know somebody who went to Campbell. So
yep, all of like 45 minutes away. I was in Raleigh probably every weekend. But that is absolutely amazing. I really do appreciate you coming on here. You've said a lot of things that's helped me from a journalism standpoint and just life in general. I'm definitely going to latch on to making sure you learn from other people, not just hearing it from one source, because that's life in general. So I really do appreciate that. I'm going to text you that one verse. Well, no, please close. I didn't mean to cut you out.
No, please text me that verse, because I want to keep that one. I just want to say congrats to you. I'm proud of you. Proud to see you going from the kid bum rushing your mom's interview. And it was so funny. You took over. I said, I'm all about showcasing kids, and just to see who you are now and the man that you've become, and walking in your own faith and walking in your light and allowing your gifts to shine. It is a true blessing to see how God is using you. And I just want to encourage you to keep going, stay steadfast. And, when things get rough, when things get tough, just put one foot in front of the other and keep going, because just looking at your sister and yourself, your mom has done an extraordinary job raising both of you. And I'm just so happy for her, because I was telling a friend, I'm gonna wrap up, and I remember your mom got engaged. I said, not Dr. Randolph don't pull a breaking news story, but I'm so proud and so happy for your whole family. and just to
We
see how
appreciate it.
God is blessing you guys. And I'm so glad. I know your mom is proud. And so if there's anything I can do to help, I'm always here to help.
Oh, I genuinely appreciate that. I remember like going to the news station and you asking, well, like you and my mom both asking if I wanted to be on there. I've always wanted to be on TV too, so it was a no-brainer. So I appreciate you giving me that opportunity. It's the first time I felt like a movie star. Uh,
Anytime.
no, but I just wanted to wrap it up. Thank you for everybody listening. This is, like I said, this has been a great one, not just for me, but hopefully to y'all. You got to learn something, get a little insight, some stuff that we can take going forward, and we can continuously learn and improve so we can just be better as a whole. This is Darwin Randolph. This has been Greg. Thank you for listening to The Coolest Show, and I'll catch you on the next one. All right, take care.